Abhi and Mohammed, whom we've been relentlessly texting with in the pursuit of this program, and to Beyond Binaries. It's lovely to have these very exciting new fora on campus who are organizing very, very good programs. So today we are here, of course, and thank you, Abhi, for doing a lot of my work, introducing the book already. It's an exciting new book from a scholar of great repute, Rosinka Chaudhuri, who's worked extensively and intensively on intellectual and political movements of 19th century India, focusing, of course, on Bengal. And we know that the book is India's First Radicals. Here it's in her hand. And out from Penguin Random House just very recently. And we are really, to echo Abhi, delighted to have Rosinka here with us during a very, very packed tour of Delhi, book tour as it were, but with her new book. And of course talking to an eminent panel of my colleagues. I was going to talk a little bit from Rosinka's introduction, but I've just convinced her to introduce her own book. So I'm going to spare you, and I think I'll save that time. The space that she's addressing is, of course, urban colonial Calcutta in this book, and the years are 1830 to 1850. And I love the fact that she starts somewhere in her introduction by quoting Virginia Woolf and her dating of the start of modernism with the quote that's famous: on or about December 1910, human nature changed, right? All the literature students know this by heart. Rosinka quotes this and talks about the Young Bengal movement, and says, I think at some point, that on or about April 1831, human nature changed. And then she goes on to talk about the Young Bengal movement and what it does. And we will hear from her on it. I think I'll just quickly introduce Rosinka, who, as we all know, is director and professor of cultural studies at the Center for Social Science, Social Studies in Calcutta, and she was inaugural Mellon Professor. Is this too loud? Is this echoing? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. She was inaugural Mellon Professor of the Global South at Oxford University in 2017. Yeah, thanks, that's better. 2018, and has held visiting positions at various institutes, well, in different parts of the world, in the UK and at Columbia and Delhi University, etc. And we all know her range of excellent books that include Gentlemen Poets in Colonial Bengal, Emergent Nationalism and the Orientalist Project, Freedom and Beefsteaks, Colonial Calcutta Culture, and The Literary Thing, History, Poetry and the Making of a Modern Cultural Sphere. And now this book, India's First Radicals, Young Bengal and the British Empire. She, of course, I mean, I think the first time I knew of Rosinka was with her work on Derozio, which all of us know. And she's an edited Derozio Poet of India, definitive edition now from Oxford University Press, and edited the Indian Post-Colonial with L.K. Verma, and a history of Indian poetry in English from the Cambridge University Press in 2016, and other publications. Most recently, she has edited, annotated, and introduced George Orwell's Burmese Days for Oxford's World's Classics as part of their Orwell series. Without many more, with this reading out of a long your publications and excellent work. Let's have Rosinka now talk to us about her new book. Yeah, I think when you be able to keep your book.
So first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I must say, without exaggeration, that it has been the greatest honor for me to be invited to somewhere by students. It's, strangely enough, it's the first time that it's happened. One gets conference invitations, one gets invited to give a lecture, but I have never actually been approached by students before to say, will you come and speak to us? So my first response, in fact, when the message was sent by Mohammed quite some time ago, was yes. And then I read his WhatsApp message more carefully and I said, no, but you're not offering travel and accommodation. I can't just go just to, meet you. And so he said, ma'am, we are only students. We don't have money. So, but if you are in Delhi in March, then please let us know. And that was the end of that until an opportunity came up to speak at Ashoka, actually, yesterday. And I said yes to that, and all of those arrangements were being finalized when a week ago, I think it was, I suddenly realized, oh, that student had written, let me try and find him. So I actually had to search, so I searched through Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and email. I didn't know exactly where the message was, and then I found it, thankfully. And I said, I'm sorry for the short notice, but I am actually in Delhi. And the rest is them. They have been absolutely amazing, as have my chairperson and discussants today, who have been literally hauled here, summoned almost, and who have so kindly agreed to give up their time. Many of them have other commitments. I know that Saugata, who is an old friend and colleague, have to leave because Shori, the former student, is giving another talk. So you all are busy at JNU with various things, and I'm really grateful that you made the time to somehow fit me in before Shori and to have this discussion. So thank you to the students, and thank you to all of you for being here, and to all of you for agreeing at such short notice. So what I'll do, as Brinda and I agreed on the way here, is to just read a few paragraphs from the introduction to give you a sense of what's in the book. And then we'll leave it to the discussants, and you'll get a more detailed sense of the concerns in it from their individual concerns. So, the first paragraph, as Brinda rightly pointed out, quotes Virginia Woolf, but I will read it despite her summary, because it's just the first of the pages to start with. Virginia Woolf once said in an essay titled Mr. Benedict Brown that, quote, on or about December 1910, human character changed. She continued, and when human relations change, there is at the same time a change in religion, conduct, politics, and literature. This is coming and going. Shall I try and throw my voice, or you need to have this on? Yeah? Okay, I'll keep going. Originally a paper read to the Heretic Society at Cambridge University, the essay was published in London in 1924. Nevertheless, her reflections on modernity and change in the literature and culture of her own time help us, I think, to contextualize the circumstances that prevailed a century before her in urban colonial Calcutta between 1830 and 1850. Many things had changed then in the capital of British Empire, India, but no change was more profound or impactful than the revolution in ways of thinking created by the generation of men described by an annoyed and influential missionary in the city at the time, Alexander Dutt, as a new race of men in the East. On or about April 1831, in Calcutta, human character changed. The history of 19th century Bengal and even of modern India, when told as a narrative of development, dependent on events, great men, and it's always, of course, in the 19th century men, Events, great men, succeeding one another in the context of social reform and the making of the modern mind, almost always leaps from the striking figure of Ram Mohan Roy, who died in Bristol in 1833, to that of the stocky Vidyasagar at the peak of his career in the 1850s. Scholars of the period will routinely mention the two men, so important for political and social thought in the 19th century, as if nothing happened in the years between them that needs sustained attention. If, however, culture, politics or social reform in India are the issues under discussion, then to elide the decades of the 1830s and 40s as they unfolded in Calcutta would be a mistake, as these were the years when India's first radicals emerged as activists and campaigners. The men whose work constitutes the subject of this book are difficult to write about, categorize or place in relation to fiction. As a result, this makes it equally difficult to place this endeavor, this book, within the familiar historiographical discourses on India, which are almost always either constructed around persons and events that already have the status of landmarks, or by contrast around the figure of the subaltern. They structure themselves on orality, if we are looking at the present, on nationalism from its official inception in the late 19th century, if we are reconsidering the idea of India, and on caste, if we are interrogating or revising that idea. Like its subject, this book does not quite fit into these paradigms. Not national icons like Gandhi, Nehru or Ambedkar, or Dadabhai Nauroji or Surendranath Banerjee in their own century, young Bengal was in fact dubbed anti-national. The word used by Dinesh Chandra Sen in 1911 was denationalized, for many reasons, not least of which was the manner in which the group offended orthodox society. Yet, if it is the anti-national who, after all, has the most ardent dream of national change, then this group of India's first radicals needs to be seriously engaged with, because the changes they wrought were among the earliest shifts to define modern India as we know it. So that's the opening couple of pages. To give you a sense of what's in the book, I can just quickly give you the chapter titles. Chapter 1 is called An Old Category, Land, and it looks at the way in which this group fought for the rights of the peasant. Actually not the peasant, the riot, which is not equivalent to peasant, as Ratnalekha Rai explains. It is the small cultivator, the person with a few bihas of land to his name. Due to land regulation acts, these tenants, traditional tenants, were being thrown out of their homes, and these are the people who then try and do something about it in civil society discourse. The second chapter is called A New Category, The People of India. This chapter argues against political scientists generally, who seem to think that everything begins, or the discussion of the people begins when the people become the locus of popular sovereignty. And my argument really is that before that to happen, the people need to be imagined into existence in language and in culture. Therefore, that is a process that happens before the political coming into being of the people at large. So that's the second chapter, New Category, The People of India. Chapter 3, I sort of had to carve it out of chapter 2 because it was getting very long. It's called India's First Political Society, April 1843. I argue in the book that the first Indian political party was formed by this group. It was called the Bengal British India Society. It has not been given its due importance by historians, perhaps because it lasted for only 2 or 3 years. It ran short of money and then later amalgamated with the Landholders Society to become the British Indian Association, which of course all of you are familiar with. So I went into the archives at the British Library, and I found the resolutions, the speeches, the planning behind the making of this political party, and there can be no doubt that in fact it is a political party for the first time that thinks of all of India, of representing all of India, and of doing something for the people of the country in a way that no other group had thought about it before. So I argue that it's India's first political party being formed here in April 1843. And then chapter 4, 5 and 6 are called Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, because these words were important to this group. But liberty deals with the freedom of speech. Famous incident when Dattha Mukherjee was interrupted at a meeting where he was giving a speech on corruption in the judiciary and the police, interrupted by the principal of the Hindu College, D.L. Richardson, who stood up and accused the students of turning that hall into what he called a den of treason. I've said over there in the discussion of that chapter so I'll just read that one paragraph because it might resonate with you. What note the denunciation of Dattha's speech in 1843 still feels astonishing in its unbook today. Sedition laws were yet to be formulated and would come into existence in India by 1870, to be used thereafter as a tool of suppression by the British until independence. The first case would come to court in 1891, only to be revived and put to frequent use in 21st century India. The meeting could have been dispersed, the hall forcibly closed by the authorities, and the police brought in to enforce the orders of those in charge with the help of those in power, within parentheses, as was the case at Jawaharlal Nehru University on 5th January 2020. Instead, the chair, Tarachand Chakraborty, stood up and told off the principal for his conduct and basically asked him to leave, which he did. So that chapter deals with this, the freedom of speech, liberty. Equality is about Radhanath Shikdar, law and the principle of equal justice. This is, Shikdar, as you know, was the person who calculated the height of Mount Everest, was at the trigonometrical survey, but more interestingly was also the first man, I think, in modern colonial India to bring a case against a British magistrate in the summer of 1843 for the abuse of coolies, or paharis as he called them, in the employ of the survey. He brought a case against the British magistrate. It's a very dramatic incident and it's recounted in his own language, where the magistrate basically tries to pressurize him into giving back the luggage he's confiscated from the coolies because they're being forced to carry the luggage. And during this confrontation, the magistrate, in fact, is the person who says to him, "Do you know who I am?" And Radhanath Shikdar replies to this, "A man, and so are you." No, who the devil are you, he's asked. Radhanath is asked, sorry, it's the other way around. Radhanath is asked, "Who the devil are you?" And Radhanath Shikdar replies, "A man, and so are you." So this premise of equality, the equality of all men, was something taken seriously by them. This is the first case brought against a British magistrate for the abuse of coolies. And then the last chapter is called Fraternity, because this actually was a band of brothers in the sense in which Shakespeare writes about it. The protagonists here are 5 friends, and they were caught in a web of scandal, outrageous behavior, certainly, but also all of this premised on very serious ethical and moral position based on reason. So the last chapter deals with the manner in which also they have been dealt with over the years. With that, I hope I've not taken up too much time. I didn't realize it's taken a long time. It's taken me 10 years to write the book, so it's no surprise it will take me more than 10 minutes maybe to describe it. So with that, I'll stop and I'll hand it over to the discussants.
I will not be hearing from you directly. So we'll go straight into the respondents or the discussants. And how we do it, we'll have all 3 speak, one after another, starting with Saugata, and then we can open it up for Rosinka to respond if she wants, and then, of course, the audience. So Saugata.